Hi folks, it's Farmer Tom. The 12th of February, the 12th day of our Cheese a Day challenge, and by heck is cold. Gosh, I hope wherever you are, you're staying warm this week. It is freezing. I've got a bit of a mission to make to you today. You see, I already know what this cheese is, and I already know I'm going to like it. I tasted it a couple of years ago at the NFU conference, and it is an absolutely delicious cheese. It made my top 5 in 2019 when I first tasted it. And today I'm really delighted that we're going to be joined by a farmer whose cows produce the milk that goes into this very cheese. So please welcome
Joe Edwards. Joe, thank you so much for tasting with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, it's well, as I've already said, I am very excited about this cheese. I already know that I'm quite the fan, but it's extra special to be tasting alongside you today because Joe, your cows produce the milk that goes to make this fabulous cheese.
Yeah, that's right. We're very lucky. We supply Hampshire cheeses with all of their milk, 500,000 litres a year to go into their 2 cheeses. It's a great cheeses, well renowned, and we're really pleased.
Brilliant. And tell us about your cows, Joe.
Our cows are crossbred, so they're a mixture of Holstein, Swedish Red, and Montbéliard, and so they've sort of got hybrid vigour, and the mix of breeds works really well for making the cheese. Milk quality is really good, and the casings in the milk are really good. And the cows are grazed at grass from April till end of September, then housed on a forage-based diet in the winter. And that's what makes the milk really good.
Yeah, brilliant. We had Johnny Crickmore on last week, and he's obviously 100% Montbéliard. So he was telling us about the kind of value that the Montbéliard breed brings to the milk. But you've mixed with a couple of other breeds. What's the different value that you've got there? The Holstein and I missed the other one. What was it?
So we were originally Holstein, pure Holstein herd, a high yielding Holstein herd, and in order to get a longer lasting cow and a better grazing cow, we were recommended to cross it first with a Swedish Red to get that two-way cross, and then with Hampshire cheese, I think actually Johnny was one of the people that Stacey Hedges spoke to. The Montbéliard was the 3rd cross we went for, and so that's where we now got a 3-way cross, and then that 3-way cross animal is either going back to a Holstein, or I'm experimenting with a Fleckvieh breed, which is another milk breed from Northern Europe.
A Fleckvieh?
Fleckvieh, very similar to Simmental.
Okay, gosh. So this is a truly international cross.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, that's amazing. And you obviously work very closely with the cheesemakers. That must be a really special relationship that really enables them to get the best out of the cheese and for you to get the best out of the cows.
Absolutely. It's a really important thing for us to be supplying Hampshire cheese and local cheesemaker. And also, we don't want to just be commodity producers. We want to do some speciality things and make all the other work we're doing on the farm worthwhile.
Yeah, brilliant. When I spoke to you the other day, Joe, you were walking across a field and you were telling me, I think you were just lifting the sward at the time, but you were telling me, which just basically means aerating the soil, a number of other things. But you were telling me about how you're trying to improve your grazing and to bring in a bit more kind of diversity in the cow's forage. What are you up to, and what's the value of that?
So I've been experimenting the last couple of years, really. We only just got going with it. We've been traditionally just a plain ryegrass grazing sward, very monoculture, lots of nitrogen fertilizer to try and get yield. But with the way the weather is now in the spring and summer, it's only been able to sustain the cows grazing properly till early June, and then we usually had to buffer feed them for a bit while the grass recovered. And then we had some rain, and then they back out again, and it's not ideal. So I've been experimenting with herbal lays, and that's a sort of 15-way mixture of grasses, clovers, plantain, chicory, that sort of thing. And it's been amazing how well that is established, how well it just keeps growing without any artificial fertilizer.
So a 15-way mix. So you've got 15 different species, all providing different inputs to the soil, and I suppose
Yeah.
different nutrients to the cow as well.
Yes, yeah, it's the cows seem to really like it and
Yeah.
graze it well. It recovers well, and it seems to be really good so far.
So they're really going from a kind of bread and gruel diet to a tapestry, a rich tapestry of all kinds of whole smorgasbord.
And it's also good for the wildlife as well, because the insects and everything else benefit from all the plant diversity, and everything everything seems to grow better because just the interaction of all the different plants just encourages growth.
So, and I know obviously the environmental side is important to you, Joe, and actually important to us as British farmers. So if I were to fast forward now, because you've just been you've been changing the lays for the last couple of years. If I was to fast forward another 5 years, what would you be expecting to see? How do you think the farm will have changed, and how will that impact I suppose the welfare of the cows and the and maybe even the taste of the milk? Are you expecting some differences there?
Not sure about the taste of milk. I think what I'm aiming for is consistency.
Yeah.
Consistent diet for the cow from turn out to turn in. We have plenty of grass for them to graze. We don't have to buffer feed with forages or concentrates. And the cows make full use of the grass and produce more milk from the grass, which is the most cost-effective way of doing it.
So, Joe, I've got this beautiful cheese which I've unwrapped in front of me. We haven't said the name yet. Why don't you tell us the name of the cheese and tell us a little bit about it?
Well, this is a Tunworth. Very cheese, been highly awarded. Raymond Blanc calls it the best Camembert in the world. A number of other chefs have also said it's their favourite cheese. It's produced up the road in Herriot by Stacey Hedges and Charlotte Spruce. Stacey started off in her kitchen developing Tunworth, and it's developed into the business it is now with two cheeses, Tunworth and Winslade. And you can buy it in good delicatessens and cheesemongers and some Waitrose stores.
Gosh, so Raymond Blanc describes it as the best Camembert in the world. I bet that sticks in the throat for the French.
For the Frenchman, yeah.
Vive la Révolution! Oh, that's fantastic! Yeah. What an amazing soundbite. That's quite an accolade. Quite an accolade. And I did a little bit of research myself. I see it's still made entirely by hand. So it started off as the kind of archetypal cottage industry, literally made in the kitchen. It's still handmade as well.
Yep. Yeah, there's a team of 4 or 5 make it. They produce 4 times a week normally, and then when it's really busy, they'll do 6 or 7 days a week. They usually take between 2,000 and 3,000 litres a day.
And for you, it's a real local cheese, because it would go from the milk goes from your farm to Hampshire Cheeses, which would be a distance of what, Joe?
10 miles, if that.
Brilliant, gosh. Well, as I say, I had the absolute pleasure of tasting this a couple of years ago, and a few times, more than a few times since. I won't give it a score today because I'd just be agreeing. Raymond Blanc and I have often thought are 2 men with one mind, and certainly on the case of this Tunworth we are. So, but let's just get into it. I'm gonna cut. What are you pairing your cheese with, Joe?
Well, I like to keep it local, so I've got some really nice rye sourdough from Brothers Bakehouse in the village, who are excellent artisan baker, and shouldn't be doing it really, but at lunchtime, a glass of Triple F from the local brewery.
Oh, fantastic! That is absolutely brilliant. And what's that? That's so that's a bitter stout.
It's a bitter it's called Alton Pride from Triple F Brewery. Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's a very nice local pint.
Brilliant. Well, I'm going to get tasting this, Joe, because I've sat on my hands for long enough. I'm not sure I can resist any longer. I took it out about an hour ago, and I've kept you talking for long enough to be.
It needs to be room temperature.
At room temperature, brilliant. Well, that's where it is. So if I taste this, just tell me what I should be tasting. What do you think I should be tasting?
It's quite a strong flavour. It's got a strong nose to it and a strong flavour. It's very creamy.
Yeah, You're right. It's straight away with a nice strong flavour. It's not. Sometimes you get cheeses which build, whereas this is all out front.
Instant.
Yeah, you don't have to wait for it. And I forgot to smell to smell it. It went straight down. So yeah, quite a distinctive smell actually. Very very pleasant. On the on one of the websites it says a rich and earthy mushroom fragrance, and I think that's right actually. I'm very poor with putting words to what I'm tasting or smelling, but
me too.
I could I could definitely agree with that though. And it also says that there's a long-lasting sweet and nutty flavour, and it is it's I don't know, it's not a flavour, certainly when I first tasted it, but even now it's not kind of a flavour that you expect from it, because it is it's all out front. There's no
It is, yeah.
you know, it's not a kind of one of those super mild, relatively anemic soft cheeses. This is the real deal.
It's packed with flavour, and the more mature it is, the stronger the flavour.
I think the phrase "finger licking good" is probably has probably been copyrighted, but it's certainly that. So what would you serve this with? In the box there's a nice quince jelly. So for those of you who are watching at home, you might want to have a little bit of quince jelly with this. But what is there a recommendation, Joe? I mean, cheese, what are they, turophiles, just get it straight in their face. They're not too worried about the vehicle or the accompaniments. But what would you have this with?
I quite like it with a chutney or sort of a sweeter chutney. So mother-in-law does a pear chutney, which is quite sweet, and that goes very well with this.
Yeah.
And mango chutney is also quite nice with this as well.
Right.
That sweetness and the cheese go quite well together.
Yeah, and actually it would kind of complement and balance the kind of punch of the flavour. Gosh, I absolutely love that. I think as well as being described by Raymond Blanc as the best Camembert in the world, it won the best soft cheese at the British Cheese Awards in 2018, and I'm sure there's a whole list of other awards that this cheese has won. But it is absolutely delicious. Well, thank you, Joe. That's tremendous. I'm sure people tasting along will agree with me, and no doubt with you, Joe, that this is an absolutely stonking cheese.
It is superb.
So, Joe, a couple of days ago, I spoke to Patrick Holden, who makes a fantastic cheddar on his organic farm. And one of the things he's a big fan of is sustainability. And particularly, one of the things he really talks about is the sustainability of mixed farming. Now, yours is a mixed farm. How do your dairy cows and their forage work in your rotation?
So we have got, the whole estate is about 1,800 hectares. And in that estate, we've got the 2 dairies, and we've got about 800 hectares of arable ground. And the dairy forage ground rotates in the arable rotation. We've got a very wide rotation and a patchwork rotation. It's not block cropping, it's patchwork cropping to benefit the wildlife and the great pastures. And we're also following a regen ag model, so we're using lots of cover crops, direct drilling, minimum artificial inputs where we can and start to improve the soil and everything. And the whole system's starting to come together. Everything's starting to benefit each other and starting to see things we haven't seen before. And the diverse grass swards and that sort of thing are producing more insects, and it's all starting to build.
And of course, that takes the cost of inputs out of the process as well, because actually I suppose the biodiversity, the soil, is doing more work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's retaining more water as well. So hopefully in time, the drier springs will be less of an issue because the soil is holding more water, and then it can release that to the plant as and when it gets drier.
And of course, it benefits us in the winter as well, because if it's holding more water up, it's keeping it out keeping it back from the rivers and preventing flooding.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I have to say, on our farm, Joe, we're following in your footsteps and other regenerative farmers, and trying to bring livestock back into the rotation, just for the massive benefits that you get in the soil. And really, that's the beauty of the whole system. You know, the natural world. We didn't just kind of we haven't improved it by chucking a load of fertilizer around. Actually, if we can use those amazing processes to improve our soil health, improve our crop health, improve our livestock health, then we're all a lot better off. It's not a zero-sum game.
No, that's right. And I think one of the next steps will be some of my parkland and stuff will become more extensive and more down to wildflowers and old traditional hay meadows, and then some of the young stock will graze on some of the arable grounds on sort of a mob grazing system to further build fertility there, just to get some more diversity.
Yeah, brilliant. Gosh, so we're really. I know, and I often talk about this. I think that we're discovering this for the first time. But what we're doing is we're taking modern scientific knowledge, and we're adding in processes which really were last used across the UK in a big way, probably in the kind of either side of the Second World War and earlier.
Yeah, and it's nothing new. It's just relearning processes and learning how things work on your farm and how you can implement those systems and what benefit they're going to give you, because every farm is slightly different and you have to tailor things to suit your conditions, your soil, your climate, and everything else.
Gosh, I can't wait to see your farm open on Open Farm Sunday. I think you'll have such a fantastic story to tell, and you're clearly headed in a direction that a lot of people will appreciate.
Yeah, I think it's the only way forward, really.
Brilliant. Oh well, hats off to you, Joe. I'm following in your footsteps and really appreciate you and the inspiration that you are. So thank you very much indeed, and thank you for joining us for this tasting. It's great to get your tasting notes and your input. So yeah, thank you, Joe. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to see you.
Cheers.